Hey, you are along for the ride with Mad Dog and Cole. I'm a two-stroke ding ding Farrell.
God save the racetracks and God smite the housing developments.
I decided to fly through the air and live in the sunlight and enjoy life as much as I could, and that's just what I'm doing.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm. Wait.
Man, oh man. What better introduction? All those motorsports, motor sounds, and the great inspiring words of Mr. Evil Knievel. Man, we all need to take a little time and just live in the sunlight and enjoy life. You know, the man lived it hard for sure, and we don't have to live that hard, but man, it doesn't hurt to enjoy a little life.
You know, if you want to enjoy a little life, if you want to make motorsports motor sounds, and if you want to fly through the air, never hurts to have our first responders there. So we here at the show would like to thank all of our first responders, all of the brave men and women of our armed forces that let us do this podcast. It is completely it sounds understated, but we couldn't do this without them, and we are so thankful to them and all of their families.
Yeah, absolutely. And, special respect for the families of the MIA and KIA and the people that gave all our service people. Thank you so much. Great respect. While we're thanking people, man, thank you so much, Kicker Performance Audio. Find them online, kicker.com, or on Instagram at Kicker Audio. And every other Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central on their live Facebook and YouTube TV show, Kicker Unmasked Live. All your 12-volt needs, check them out, kicker.com. Of course, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear, Bomber Eyewear. If you're going to be cool, you should wear Bomber Eyewear. You should have at least 15 pairs, much like myself and my co-host. And man, durable, great product. They float. Over 40 styles of frames. I don't even know how many styles of lens combinations. Look them up online, bombereyewear.com, or on Instagram at Bomber Eyewear. Of course, the Premix podcast, our man Cole, sharing his passion for all things desert racing through the lens of a camera, and also available for your announcer or MC needs. If you have announcer or MC needs for your event, keep in mind he is scheduling in 2024. So if you are hoping to get him for your Christmas party, it's too late, unless there's free beer.
Eggnog doesn't hurt.
Check him out on Instagram. Slide into his DMs if you need a pic of your race car out in the desert. Find him. The @ symbol ThePremixPodcast on Instagram. Of course, Kelsey Morel Film and Media, getting all of our Along for the Rides up on our Mad Dog Media YouTube channel. And congratulations to Kelsey for graduating yesterday in her film school major and getting that done. If you need her for anything from shorts to video production, music production, audio production, hit her up on Instagram at Kelsey Morel Film. Of course, Hey Keeks Marketing, getting all our cool social media effects going for us, working on some more cool stuff. If you need help with anything from websites, website management to social media or product logo designs and stuff like that, yell, Hey Keeks, Find her online, heykeeks.com, or on Instagram at heykeeksmarketing. I am so excited for this next guest, bro. You have no idea what you're in for. Everything from like King of the Hammers, monster trucks, driving vintage original Shelby race cars, GTRs. I mean, this girl is on fire. Coming up next. All right. As promised, one of the raddest people I know, folks, Nicole Johnson. Nicole, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, it's I kind of just touched on a little bit, but from like King of the Hammers to monster trucks to, real Cobra race cars to what was the most recent, like the Skyline, I think
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Little right-hand drive Skyline. That was actually pretty fun
yeah, how
to
weird
try that.
was it weird to have to adjust to right hand drive?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Japan and I actually drove something right-hand drive in Japan, but it was off-road and it wasn't quite the same as in Las Vegas driving something right-hand drive and making a left-hand turn where there's two left-hand turn lanes and you're in the outer lane is really weird because you're sitting so far away from where your instincts are and you have to turn all the way over to the curb almost. Really weird.
Yeah.
Shifting with your left hand, a little strange. Yeah. Biggest thing on that car that scared me was the clutch because I was like, man, I'm going to stall this thing. It had a racing clutch. It was hard to be smooth in it, but I did it. I pulled it off. So
Nice.
I get to drive a lot of really cool cars. And I think the thing that has been the biggest door opening for me is having driven monster trucks. For whatever reason, people think you're just a pro at that point, and they just trust you to drive their $2 million Cobra. And I don't know. I will never regret having done that in my career because it's been a huge door opening for me.
For sure. And talking about monster trucks, I want to go back even before that. So, monster trucks, King of the Hammers. I actually read in one of your bios that you raced go-karts as a kid, but
we didn't race them? We just had them. I just had a Briggs and Stratton lawnmower powered, go-kart that my dad built for me when I was like 5. And we would just run them around the block until the cops would come and then you put them away real quick, not natural. So it's just fun.
That's awesome. But you
formal.
didn't race them. So it's probably the first thing we call that plausible deniability. I think I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure if you were behind the wheel, there was probably some racing involved. But
there were street cars that we were racing. We were like, I look back and it's really, really dangerous. 5 years old, and I would just take off, go around the block and be like driving in traffic in my go-kart. And then seriously though, somebody would always call the cops and we'd put them away and everybody would just act like it was no big deal. And we never got caught. My dad was he was a diesel mechanic and he was always tinkering on something. He had a Pantera when I was really little.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the very first car I ever went 100 miles an hour in. I was probably maybe 6 years old. I don't know. It's either 5 or 6 years old, pretty young.
Wow.
And I had an older sister and, it's only a 2-seat car. So
Right.
She sat in the passenger seat and I sat on the center console, which again, looking back, not very safe. Let's take the 6-year-old 100 miles an hour. And that's really fast when you're little and sitting on the console.
Yeah.
But I always get to remember that experience as I was in a Pantera, a yellow 71 Pantera with a turbo.
Sick.
My dad's car.
You flashed on that just for a second, but is this where it all started? Like your dad was, you said, was a diesel mechanic.
Yeah. He worked for Caterpillar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he worked for Caterpillar when I was really little. I grew up in California. He was born and raised in Hawaii. I'm Portuguese, which is where I get my brown skin. He's full Portuguese, born and raised there. Let's go back to the 1800s. They came from Portugal to Hawaii. Anyway, most people don't realize there's a lot of Portuguese people in Hawaii. But so I was always around, cars and motors. But as far as like competition stuff, that's my husband that got me into that. I got married really young. I was 19 and he was 22. I was a freshman in college when we got married. And that
Wow.
was 30 years ago. I'm dating myself here. So I've been married 30 years now. And
Congratulations.
thank you.
That's a whole
And
task in itself.
yeah, we could have a whole nother podcast on just
Oh, yeah.
how do you get to 30 years?
Amen.
So I guess you could say I've learned to never give up. So we both learned to never give up. But
For sure.
yeah, my husband when we got married, he had a Land Cruiser, a 72 Toyota Land Cruiser, FJ40,
Nice.
and it had a Chevy 350 in it with a Muncie 4-speed and a horn that sounded like a train and big curly hair. And that was like, yeah, let's get married. I mean, I don't know. When you're 19, there's not like a whole lot of, I'm not saying I regret it. It's just you think, wow, and okay, that makes sense. Let's get married.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and yeah, and so we, lived in Utah for a while because I went to school, college in Utah, and there's good wheeling in Utah. There's obviously
There is.
Moab,
Yes.
and he was constantly out trying something more difficult than the vehicle could keep up with, constantly
Yep.
pushing his vehicle. And then when we graduated in 96 and moved to Las Vegas, we met the people in the Land Cruiser Club, and we realized there's a whole group of people just like us. They got Land Cruisers, and we're not the only ones anymore. And so we started wheeling with them. And that eventually progressed into my husband competing. He was the spotter with his best buddy, and rock crawling competition was new. So there's a driver, and then there's a guy
Right.
out. Whoa, I locked through my computer. There's a guy outside the vehicle who's the spotter.
Yep.
So he did that for several years, and he's good at it. He's really good at looking at the suspension and seeing if it's about to unload. And basically, if you have a driver who's compliant enough, he can drive you from his perspective.
Right.
So we eventually started our own team, and I said, I'm just going to be the monkey. This is cool. Like, I'd been around it now, for so many years. Our kids were little, and I wanted to try it. And so he was the spotter outside the car. And I think because I was the driver, we ended up with a lot of media, and we were on the History Channel, and we were on magazine covers and several magazine articles. And this is before social media. And I developed a pretty good press kit. Kicker actually came on board very, very early, about 2006 or 7. I can't quite remember when it was.
Wow. That's awesome.
And one of our very first sponsors, actually. And we had met a local guy in Vegas. We were out practicing and driving around on some big rocks and just playing around in our buggy. And this guy who owns a car audio place here in Vegas kind of was, in his Jeep, and he comes by and he says, hey, you got any sponsors? Can I sponsor you? It was just like that. He just thought it was cool that I was driving, and
Yeah.
so he's the one that turned us on a Kicker.
Nice.
And it's really cool because I would show up and have the coolest tunes. Our race
Yeah,
trailer
yeah.
sounded good, and we were living loud. So we did that for a few years, and then I dabbled in some short course. If you know what that is, it's like motocross,
yeah.
but in a buggy or a truck. And I was really trying to get into that because the rock crawling thing, and I've driven on some gnarly terrain, and it is very, very cool. But eventually, it just didn't have enough warm bodies to bring return on investment. So I needed to try and get to another higher level of motorsports.
Right. Was that during the stretch now? You were like the first woman to ever finish King of Hammers,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So that was all kind of, when I talk about the rock crawling days, it was all kind of encompassing that because I did that at the same time. So back then, King of the Hammers was a standalone event. 2008 was the first official year. The OG 13, if you're familiar with that, are the first 13 people who test run it. And that was 2007. I was actually invited to be OG 13 to run it in that test year. But we just come back from Moab. Our buggy was trash. We were tired, and we're like, Dave, you're crazy. Like, you know what I mean? We're just too tired.
Yeah.
And of course, hindsight, we would love to say that we were part of that. But the very first official year was 2008. And yeah, I finished it that year, and it was exhausting. And It's morphed so much since then. It's come so far. That was a run what you brung. There were
Right.
44 teams that showed up, and we just parked all over the desert. There was not one spectator and not one sponsor or vendor at the event. We were just showing up to the hammers, and we were just running it. And so
Nice.
it's, I could never be competitive today in what I drove back then, as most sports will progress.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
technology progresses. So that was all sort of during the same time that I was running full seasons of rock crawling, and picked up a short course little 1600 buggy and was trying to get into Lucas Oil short course racing. Did a few of those things, and then by 2010 is when I my famous interaction with Dennis Henderson at SEMA. I met him and just jumped shipped over into monster trucks by 2011, and actually sold everything I had. It sold my competition stuff,
Right. Yeah.
After a few years, I was like, I don't need the SEMA. This is cool. I'll just go do this. So it was just a weird, when I talk about the rock running days, it was all encompassing at the same time,
Right.
as
Yeah.
a short course and as King of the Hammers. But I've driven on some, I can confidently say I have driven on some gnarly things, and I have barrel rolled, I've rolled over backward, forward, sideways, burst into flames, lawn darted, you name it, jumped my truck in the air. And I get to tell cool stories one day when I'm a grandma.
Yeah. No, that's
So,
rad. And then the launch into, monster trucks was like, I mean, they're still hot. I feel like they kind of maybe went away for a little bit there or dropped in popularity, but it seems like in the last few years they're back huge. But back in that time frame, like 2011, I mean, they
mhm.
were huge,
Yeah, I didn't follow it ahead of that. Of course, we all know what Monster Jam is and knew what
Right.
monster trucks are. We all think of Bigfoot, which is actually like a sin, like a cuss word around Monster Jam if you say Bigfoot, because there's this huge rivalry that I realized exists between the two organizations.
Right.
But Gravedigger, we've all heard of Gravedigger.
Yep.
And very first truck I ever test drove was one of the Gravedigger trucks. And so
Wow.
it was just sort of like I was in the right place at the right time. And when the
Yeah.
opportunity came up to test drove, I had actually met the folks at Feld Entertainment, which owns Monster Jam, and I had
Mhm.
my press kit, which had all my magazine stuff and some of the TV stuff I had been in from rock crawling. I happened to have that on me when I met them and gave it to them. And within just a few days, they called and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come to North Carolina and test drive a truck." And I'm literally just like, are you going to show me how to drive one? Because
Right.
I've never done this before. I mean, and at the time, it's like you're thinking, "Whoa, free trip to North Carolina to drive a truck," and you're thinking about a career path. You're actually
Right.
just thinking about what a fun week that's going to be,
Yeah.
And within 2 days, they offered me a job, and that's when, most people don't know this part of the story. I had a sore neck. I couldn't lift my left arm. 2 days of test driving in a seat that's not custom built for you will rip you apart,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it will hurt your body when you land. And I didn't want to tell anybody that I was uncomfortable because I wanted the job. I was going to be tough, right?
Right.
So they offered me the job, and I just, kept it to myself, like that I couldn't lift my left arm. To take my helmet off on this end of
Oh.
that second day, I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't lift my arm, and it hurt so bad. The flight home was so painful.
Oh,
And I go back, and for 3 weeks, I was just in so much discomfort. And I was crying at home. I had already said yes to the job. And I was telling my husband, like, "Oh, what did I just say yes to? What did I get myself into this?" And I'd never been to a show. And there was a 6-week gap between the 2 days that I test drove and my first show. So test drive in a field for 2 days. On day 3, you're in a tiny little arena in Trenton, New Jersey. Don't hit a dasher. Okay.
Wow.
Of course I'm going to hit a dasher. Never driven in the confines of an arena before. But I was at home, and I was just like, okay, so the key is, if you can't lift your left arm for 3 weeks, go get a massage. And when they say Do you mind if we work on your glutes? Say yes, because then your arm will move. So
Right.
they had to work on my butt, and then my arm worked just fine. That's the key. Let them work on the glutes.
I had no idea. That's
Oh, it's
I have logged that information for future reference.
now you know. If arm
Yeah.
don't work, get somebody to pound out your butt. That's it. That's it. There's nothing glamorous in it.
Right.
Oh,
Oh man.
yeah.
Well, realistically, back then, like the trucks weren't what they are now either, as far as the ride goes or how they fit to you drivers. And there's so many safety improvements today over 2010 2011.
I only have the perspective of being there from 2011 on, and I
Right.
thought safety was excellent. So completely, like, really well thought out, better than any other motorsport I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Really
Okay.
OCD about safety. And the biggest thing was that once you were hired on as a driver, they would get you a custom fit seat, which is like a rigid aluminum ISP seat,
Yeah.
like that they were using in NASCAR with no suspension in it, and it fits every single measurement. Your width of your shoulders, your rib cage, your waist, your hips, the height of your shoulders. Everything is custom fit to you. Then you're great. Like once you're strapped in super tight, like tight. Do you know that within 10 minutes my legs would go numb? That's how
Wow.
tight my were
Well,
in 10 minutes.
wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you just we had ratcheting harnesses. They don't
Really?
come out. They don't come loose. No.
It's like
Right.
a
Ratcheting.
3/8 drive they put on there and they tighten you down.
Yeah, basically. And you can still release it the same way, but it's a ratchet. And so
Wow.
it's because there's so many G forces. That truck is 20 Gs. When it lands, when a big air jump and it
Right.
lands, they actually did some testing with the military and discovered it was 20 Gs. So
Wow.
your body needs to be tight at one with the seat. So you're bouncing like this, not like this.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to be dead fishing in the seat.
No. And
Yeah.
honestly, though, once you got all your safety gear dialed in, your head and neck restraint at the
Yeah.
right, it's everybody's different. That's not to say that you're not ragdolling sometimes. And that's not to say you don't get headaches. And that's not to say you don't have some injuries here and there. Ultimately, it is a pretty dangerous sport, but safety was super good.
Yeah.
Super good. Or I wouldn't be able to do this right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I can
Yeah,
trim
so-
that much.
How many how many years did you
6.
6
I
years?
did that. 6 full years. Yeah. So my last show was December of 2016. So it started January 2011, which was 6
Right.
actual years. And then I took a little break and we bought a house and we remodeled the house and the kids were still, wrapping up school and going to lacrosse games and dealing with kids. So I took a little break, and honestly, it was hard for me to do that. I made the decision for many reasons to step away from it. I
Yeah.
honestly thought I would do it for 5 years, and I did it for 6, and I felt like, okay, I checked that box, but it's time for me to do something else. I just didn't know what that was yet. And
Right.
when I left, I really struggled personally with feeling like a has been. Honestly, like when you step aside and you still watch all your friends doing that,
Yeah.
and the whole industry just continues to move on and the whole off-road industry continues to do its thing, it makes you feel like what actually, I don't know, do you know who Jesse Combs was?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jesse was a friend of mine, and in 2017 we were at the King of the Hammers together, and I had just 2 months earlier stepped away from Monster Jam, and she said, and I was telling her these things, like I was like, I feel like a loser, like I feel like a has-been, and she goes, no, you're retired, Nicole. Just embrace that you're retired. And I was like, kind of not happy with that at the time. Like, ugh, I don't want to hear that word. That means I'm never coming back to whatever that was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it feels very comforting to me today. Obviously she's
Yep.
no longer with us. And I'm like, you know what? That's right, Jesse. I retired from that. And now I'm going to go off and do something else, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were retired, but not retired.
No, in my mind, I was really fighting that.
Yeah.
I felt that meant like you're done. Like there's nothing more for you to do. And I was super occupied with what we were doing personally between the kids and the house and the remodel. There
Yeah.
wasn't a dull moment. But from a public perspective, your Instagram, for example, will gain a certain amount of followers that expect monster truck content, and then it's like cookies and gardening and house remodel. I
Right.
wasn't posting very often, and I didn't have anything car content related, which really ate me up because I do love cars. And it wasn't until COVID that we actually had the time and rethinking, like, let's do that show we'd always talked about. So my producer, Michael Badamy, I've
Yep.
actually worked with for many, many years. I mean, going back 15 years, like he was my manager for me and helped me read some of my sponsor contracts and deals at Monster Jam. And we had been to several events together. Like we've been to France for an event back in like 2011, so he goes way back with my history. And when I was in Monster Jam, I was constantly approached by producers that wanted to do a monster truck driving mom show. They want to come to my house. This is like on the tail of, reality shows.
Right.
And they want to
Right.
come to my house and they want to show me making pancakes in the morning for the kids and then dropping them off at school and then flying out and then crushing some cars and then coming back and going to church, doing all those. And honestly, two things. One, I never wanted to expose my kids to that. They were still, elementary aged and I wasn't interested in that.
Right.
And I just, you see families just completely ripped apart that were on reality shows.
Yeah.
So that was always something I wasn't interested in. But, we always had another idea that, and I didn't have rights to any of it. I don't own the monster truck. So
Sure.
great that you want to do that. It's never really going to happen because that's just not part of the business model that Monster Jam was, seeking. So, so Michael and I had always kind of, imagined what a show would be and could be. And so it's morphed since then. But when COVID hit, his primary client was a hospital and he was filming inside of hospitals. In fact, he's won 7 Emmys for his work filming these, medical documentaries. And
Wow.
he's really good.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, you're not filming in hospitals. So
Right.
he called me up. It was, about 3 years ago. And he said, well, my schedule's been wiped out now for months and I got nothing on it. And you want to do that show we'd always always talked about. And, we hadn't thought about it for a few years. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. And we started, just looking for really good cars. And we really lucked out on our very first car. The very first one that we released happened to go viral. And in 1 month, we had 2 million views on our first video. And
Wow.
from 0 subscribers to 20,000 subscribers. Totally real. And we just went, what just happened? And
Right.
we put, I don't know if you know this, but we put the Kicker logo at the end of that video as a big thank you to Kicker.
Oh,
Kicker
I
didn't pay me
didn't.
for that.
Right.
That
No.
wasn't something. I just loved you guys. I loved Kicker. I'd been with
Yeah.
them for so long that the only thing I wanted to do was say, hey, thanks, guys. So we put that logo on the back end of that video, and I had no idea. Today it has 8.5 million views.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
the whole concept of the show is I want to drive everything. And honestly, it's just who I am. I used to pester my friends in high school. Hey, let me drive your car. I want to drive your car. I was always like, I want to drive your car, and I don't know. It's just authentically who I am, I guess.
I can attest to that actually, because I was I can't remember what
Were you
the
there when
time
we
frame
jumped
was.
Charlie's
Jeep.
Charlie's
Yes.
Jeep.
Dear Charlie
You
Schultz
gotta
from Kicker.
explain the terrain out back. You gotta explain what it looks like.
So out behind Kicker Stillwater Designs in Stillwater, they have these couple of huge fields on each side that they own, all fenced in, but the one side is kind of marshy, and the other side has these rolling, I would call them rolling hills. Um, but they could easily, as Nicole proved, be a step on, step off.
You could easily, if you drove it hard enough, you can get some air on a
Yeah.
Jeep.
There's actually, I think there's some pictures
There's video
of me
somewhere.
screwing around in the Razor
Yeah.
at after that. I think it was shortly after that. But yeah,
We kind of stole Charlie's Jeep. So Charlie was what? The
he
VP
was
of
VP of
marketing
Kicker. Yeah.
of Kicker? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a pretty good Jeep. Wasn't it built by Rockstar Garage? It was
I
pretty
think
well
so.
built.
The white one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Has
And Charlie
supercharger.
didn't know it. We just took his keys while he's working. And we're out like being misfits over here.
Yeah.
And the marketing team gets their cameras out, and it was like, you think you could jump that, Nicole? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did it a couple of times. We might have accidentally broke it.
Yeah.
Oops.
I was going to leave that part out, but
we might have accidentally broke something. It was just like a mount or something. It wasn't that bad. I don't know. It wasn't that bad. Poor Charlie.
yeah, that story is still cycles around when I'm back at Kicker.
Yeah.
Still cycles around once in a while. I still hear stuff
Right.
about when Nicole broke Charlie's Jeep.
Right. As long as I'm a legend there, that's all that counts.
You will always be a legend there for sure. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it's
I have to ask you, have you ever jumped a car? I don't know what your motorsports background is.
Oh yeah.
Because you do the UTV stuff, right? Like, what do you do?
I did a lot of UTV stuff early on, road race bikes. I started moto, but wasn't that good. So I went to pavement, and I was pretty good for a while till my attitude got in the way. I was young, very, very young, and got involved, did a little bit of motorcycle drag racing, did some stunt work.
Wow.
So I've rolled some cars for videos. My probably my most popular was indie video where for a local Pacific Northwest heavy metal band, where I rolled after jumping excessive amount of height in a Datsun 710 station wagon.
Nice.
I rolled it. I barrel rolled it. And completely off of basically a dirt ramp. And we didn't have stuff like they didn't have the budget to build ramps. We didn't have a safety crew. I just found a spot where I'm like, I think if I hit this fast enough and dig the right front end, I should be able to barrel roll it. And they're like, oh, really? Yeah, you got to do that. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I've jumped them. I've rolled them on purpose. People look at me and go, you rolled a car? An accident, right? And I'm like, no. And they're like, when do they call you the Mad Dog?
Yeah.
But
that's
yeah,
cool.
and then quads, UTVs, now just about anything off-road. I was just at the Kicker Arena Cross season opener for the 24 season, which they did in 2023 in Boise. And I had one of their race teams was trying to get me on one of their pit bikes for a little mechanics race. And I said no, because I was afraid someone would let my wife know I did it. And so I did respectfully turn down the opportunity based on the fact that I didn't have my gear and my helmet. So at least it was legit.
At least you were smart about needing your equipment.
Yeah, I have certain gear that I have to wear, and you're probably the same way in any of this stuff. Your helmets, and I can't imagine in Monster Jam, like if we can we say Monster Jam, Cole? I think so.
Yeah,
it's an event.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
you know, you're
And let me
probably
tell you, technically in my contract, my title is Monster Jam driver. So
ah,
I can say I am
There you go.
was a Monster Jam driver, was in
there
my
you go.
contract. There
Nice.
you go.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends that ride the freestyle shows for Monster Jam. Well, several friends.
We
And
probably know some of the same people, I'm sure.
yeah, I would guess. And there, of course, you have to know Cody
Of
Elkins,
course. Elkins,
but
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
kicker, hardcore kicker
Yep.
too. But my good friend Robert Haslam, he's recovering. Heal up, Robert, recovering from a little shoulder injury. Um,
So violent, man.
freestyle's brutal. I mean, I wouldn't say violent. Monster trucks are violent. I mean,
Well, we have a cage and a seatbelt on a motorcycle. Are you kidding me? No way. I think that's way harder core, way hardcore
really,
by
but you
comparison.
still have
Yeah.
internal organs that are bouncing around everywhere inside your body in a monster truck.
One time I cased a double, which you would know if you're from
Oh
bikes,
yeah,
you know what that means.
yeah.
It was a big jump, and your choice, it was like a hill and then a little valley and a hill. And your choice would be to like kind of bunny hop at one and then one, or you could just, get enough speed and just
Yep.
jump the whole thing and hopefully down ramp it. But we never had an opportunity to practice. So at that time, the track was different every week. And your only opportunity would just be to walk it ahead of the show and kind of gauge, like, I don't know, like how much running I would need and how much throttle, but you just kind of wing it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I was going to do the double and I came up short. So on
Oh,
the second hill, my tires hit the flat spot instead of the down ramp. I hit
oh,
right here, and the whole track went, well, bam, boom, and hit on the flats upside down. Like
ooh,
it kicked me upside down, and I landed where there's no suspension, no squishy, boom, right on the dirt, upside down on the cage. So I ended up bruising my lungs. They came up and hit my ribs, and I was coughing up blood.
wow. Yeah, that's
Ended up
pretty
in the
violent.
hospital, but I drove the next week. As long as I was driving the next week, I was happy.
That's a heck of a recoil too, because you stabbed the front tires directly in, and
Oh
it
yeah.
just launched you skyward.
Oh yeah. It
Yeah.
just bam. It just before you even knew
Oh,
it was happening, there's
yeah.
nowhere for that truck to go except upside down.
Yeah.
So,
Cole.
I've had some minor injuries, nothing
Yeah.
too bad.
Cole has is familiar with coming up short on a double. Also, he's got
Uh-oh.
lower
What'd you
section
do,
of
Cole? Let's hear it.
titanium back.
Amazing how you can work this story into other people's stories now. But
Right.
You broke your back?
yeah, I broke my back. The sun was in my eyes, and it was a jump that I've hit 1,000 times and could throw some style off it, no big deal. But just that morning, I'm like, I can't really see how far it is, but I've hit it 1,000 times. I'm like, okay, like halfway through third gear, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, nope, I'm not even close. And then in the hospital for a week and all that good stuff. But
Oh, yikes.
yeah,
And how old were you when that happened?
I was 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
doubles can be violent, but it's nice to
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
cage sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Unless you land
Everybody I know
directly
who's
on the
ever
cage. Yeah.
ridden a bike, everybody I know who's ridden a bike has broken a lot of bones. Like you can't
Part of the
not break
deal.
bones. Right. Which is crazy. See, I'm
Good
a total
Lord.
wimp. I'm a total wimp. I just need a cage. And there's a difference though. When you have all your safety equipment, it's
Yeah.
amazing what you'll do. Like you wouldn't ever try any of these things without your helmet or your, head and neck restraint or your riding boots or whatever
Yeah.
you need to wear. Even driving gloves. It's amazing that even wearing driving gloves makes you feel more somehow protected or in control. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but you'll elevate what you're willing to try when you have all the safety equipment,
Yeah, it was definitely. I found that when I went back to racing quads um, after my car accident. I went through all those surgeries and all that, got all patched up, and I was like you, I was like, I'm not ready to be a has-been, and so I went to racing open utility quads because you're all busted up. We had 19 surgeries in 18 months. It makes sense to get on a 600-pound 75 horsepower at the wheels quad and go race in the desert with when you're, what was I, probably 43, when you're racing kids that are 16, 17,
Yeah.
18.
But
It
you
makes
know what
total
that's
sense.
called? It's called With Age Comes the Cage.
Yeah,
And
eventually
you're living proof of
I'm
that.
I'm bad. I'm more on the cage now. I tell people
Yeah.
I have two speeds, on and more on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm gonna remember that one.
Yeah,
Great.
it's definitely indication of how I have lived my life, and but you too. I mean, so now I we keep getting distracted, which always happens. By the way, speaking of distracted, the Unmasked Live that Kicker did, the guys did with you
Me and
and
Aaron.
Aaron Hagar.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that thing is gold. That is so good. Um, so much fun. And I was hoping he would show up at the booth while you were there during SEMA, because I
Right.
I I would just sit back and watch the pandemonium happen.
Did you see the episode that we did with Aaron? I
I
went up
didn't
to
watch
his
the
Wrap
whole
Runner's
thing.
garage and
No,
drove his
yeah,
Pinsgauer. But we're just two little spazzes when we're around each other. And his
yeah,
giggle is just so infectious, you
yes,
know? He's got the best laugh. Aaron is a really big-hearted person, and I like him. He's awesome.
yeah.
He's
Well,
easy to be around.
yeah, for sure, and super chill. And I did watch the video. I watched the first portion. I think it was on your Instagram, of the you driving the Pinzgauer for the first time, and
Oh, you
I was,
can't shift it into,
oh
you can't
yeah,
shift that thing. And I was stubborn because he said, "Oh, you don't need to start in first gear. It's got like a granny low. It's so low geared. You could literally start out in second gear and then it just real easy goes into third." And I go, "No, that's not what this show is about. Like, I want to start in first and I want to get it into second, but it's slightly at like the transmission slightly at like a 1 o'clock angle. Hindsight, right? When you get out of
right.
it, you're like, oh, I got it. But the very first time you're trying it, you're not you're not able to get it into second. And then you lose all your RPMs and the car is not even moving anymore when you go from first to second and you have to start all over again and you're rolling backwards because you're pushing the clutch. So it was fun, and and he's like an older brother teasing me the whole time. Come on,
Oh yeah,
Nicole. Come on, Nicole. Just put in second. And
that
I
was
I wanted to do it the hard way. I wanted to do it from first to second. And it was a little booger.
yeah. No, that was hilarious. And
It's
so
fun.
now you've launched your show, and it's going crazy. Nicole
I'm doing
Johnson's
good.
tour
Detour.
on
YouTube.
YouTube, right? And is it
Yeah.
available?
Oh, yeah. It's we've got 172,000 subscribers
Wow.
and 29 episodes.
Awesome.
So, I mean, the ratio of, I was actually just looking up some of our stats, and I hate to be a nerd, but you know, we only have 29 episodes. We have 31 uploads because two of our little minute and a half videos are just like little trailers
Yep.
for some of the episodes. And our median episode, the one in the middle of 29 of them, is the Pinsgauer episode, and it has 375,000 views. Our median.
Awesome.
That
Yeah.
means half have more and half have less. But our average is like 485,000. And that's
Wow.
not counting the viral one. I got
Right.
rid of the 8.5 million because I didn't want to skew it. So forget that one. That one went viral. Let's look at the other 28 episodes. I dropped the lowest, which has 100,000 views, and I dropped the biggest one at 8 million. Anyway,
But that's
what's
literally prime time motorsports weekend viewership numbers. So it's hugely impressive.
It doesn't make sense to me that so many people haven't subscribed yet, because our views, I can tell you 100% are organic. We've never faked anything.
Right.
There's no bot views. You can read the comments and 100% see that nothing is being faked. But we only have 172,000 subscribers, but like bigger channels that have 2 and 3 and 4 million subscribers are kind of averaging maybe less than what we're getting. And so we feel very fortunate, and we don't know. So I feel like we're just still getting started. We're not there
Yep.
yet. And I
Yep.
don't even know, as I feel slightly not frustrated that we don't have more subs, but curious as to why we're able to get such great views, but we don't yet have the subs to support it. One person put it into perspective for me. Well, would you rather have 4 million subs and you're still only getting 400,000 views?
Yeah.
Ooh, probably not.
No.
You're right. We're killing it by comparison.
And
I feel really fortunate.
I'm a firm believer in organic growth. You know, that's something we've done with this show. What are we, a year and a half in, Cole?
Yeah, right on. Yep.
Episode 64. We did 50 episodes in 52 weeks. So,
A lot of work.
but we have, I have great advisors. Cole's awesome, but Jim Beaver keeps me on track sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you saw that I just did a podcast with Jim at SEMA.
I was actually just I was just talking to him. When was that? This morning or yesterday? I think it was this morning. I called him. We're going over some stuff, and we're getting some kicker stuff lined out for one of his side-by-sides. So you heard it here first, folks.
Good. Well, good. He's a nice guy, and
he is.
I don't know if you know Matt Martelli.
Oh yeah, I've known Matt for a long time.
Yeah, Matt. That thing that we did, the podcast that we did at SEMA, was kind of a collaboration with Offroad Racer Network and Jim.
Yep. Yeah,
at the Rigid booth. So that was kind of cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, and so Jim is kind of my advisor. Cole calls him the pod father, and really he is when it comes to motorsports. I mean, he started podcasting motorsports when there was virtually nobody doing it.
Yep.
And podcasts were like almost unheard of, So but going back to what I was saying, the organic growth is I would much rather have organic, genuine growth and organic, genuine, loyal followers.
For sure.
And, that's kind of like we've skated around this so far, this whole episode, but you're a woman in motorsports, and that's kind of how you have. Yep. For those for those of you on the audio side, until the YouTube gets produced, she just looked down her shirt to make sure. So
they're there.
But no, that's actually exactly the point I was going to make, though, is as a woman in motorsports, you have earned your place, earned your followers, earned your growth through 100% being real and being organic, and not running around in a bikini top all the time or whatever. I mean, I don't care whatever you do, but you're not driving a monster truck in a bikini, that's a little bit over the top ridiculous, but you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah. And it's a big deal for me. And I, my kids were little when we started. I've always dressed modestly, and I, being true to who I am, I'm not going to change that just because, maybe I'll get more likes, and maybe I'd get less likes, because how do you know what my back of my knees look like after having 2 babies? So, I mean, my point is I've never shown any kind of skin, and I won't, and it's just not who I am, even in my, personal life.
Right.
So, I've always wanted to do things that my mother-in-law would be proud of, and she's passed, but she was always extremely, conservative and prude, for lack of a better word. And I always wanted my kids to be proud. And I just think that while it is it takes longer to get to where you're going doing it this route, because you can get eyeballs on you that fast if you decide to peel off some clothes. But I've seen a few women do that, and they didn't get as much respect. what would happen is, let's just say you got dudes and you got a girl who maybe is using more of her body to try and get the attention. But let's say the girl has a bad performance on the track. Well, she's just dumb. Like they're not going to look at it as like, oh, she made a mistake. It's a dude has the same
Right.
thing. He just made a mistake.
Yeah.
There's a different level of criticism, and you can't do that. Like, it's unfortunate still that there is a different level in general for
Sure.
criticism for men and women. But if you are not about trying to make it all about your gender, then there's a little bit more respect. I don't see any gender barrier in
Right.
cars.
Yeah.
There isn't any. I don't have to muscle it. You know what I mean? I don't.
Right.
It's not about my brute strength. It's just
Well, and if
brain,
you did
hands, and
have
feet.
to, I'm sure you could.
Well,
But
maybe I've had to drive cars without power steering. So
yeah,
there you go.
being a racer, I feel like the bottom line is being a racer is being a racer, right?
Yeah.
So
If you want to be taken seriously, you just gotta be one of the dudes. I mean, at that
Yeah.
point,
well,
unfortunately, to say it like that, you just do.
yeah, but
Gotta be cool.
to the point I was kind of what I was getting to is you've built all this being the racer, like Nicole the racer, Nicole the personality, Nicole the, don't take this the wrong way, the awesome chick. But I mean, it's not, oh, did you see Nicole's latest post with her whatever that big tire and the bikini? No, we never saw that. So it's huge respect for me for sure.
Thank you.
Because through all the year, I mean, I've lived my majority of my life in motorsports and seen a lot of that through a lot of different venues, from whatever motorcycles to side by sides to rally to drag racing. There's just a lot of it where a lot of women seem to attempt to leverage their body as opposed to their talent. And you've chosen to go, no, I have the talent, and you'll find me when you want the talent, and there you are, And now, you're getting averaging, what'd you say, 800,000, 700,000 views a show?
Averaging 485. That's pretty good.
Pushing 5. Yeah. I mean,
we have 4 episodes over 1 million and several in the 900,000. And I'm not saying any of that to like toot my own horn, but
no,
it does put it into perspective that we're only getting started. I only have 29 videos.
Right.
So that's not like I put out 600 or 700 videos for 10 years to get to this point.
Right.
We put out maybe once a month, it's, but the biggest, you have to kind of look at it as a business. It's obviously an expensive production. We're not using cell phone videos. We have real cameras and real edit hours and real color grading, real audio mix and real boom mic, just to record. Like, we got a guy holding a boom mic over our heads when we're recording. It's a real undertaking, but I'm proud of our little team, and we're just, it's fun is not having bosses. What's fun is just being able to create our own content the way we see it and pick our own cars.
Yeah.
Just
that's so cool.
It's cool. Like, hey, we just think that's cool. And maybe, I hope it doesn't change. One of my fears is that one day we'll land a great sponsor for the whole show. That would be the dream. It's just like brought to you by whatever, right? Sponsor. And then we have proper funding for the show. I'm just worried that then at some point somebody will then tell us what we can and can't produce.
Right.
So I would like to, that we have turned down more opportunities than we've said yes to, so that we can continue to remain in control.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for me.
It's important. And I have no doubt that you will end up with the big sponsor that goes, just do your thing, because that's what got you to where you're at, is doing it your way, doing your thing. And there's got to be somebody out there that appreciates the unpredictability of Nicole.
Right. Sometimes just words fly out of my face. Like
Right.
in our last episode, I holy shoemini. I've never said that in my life. I don't even know what holy shoemini is. It's probably a very G-rated version of what it could be. But
Right.
I don't know. I invent words sometimes. I don't know.
That's
I
awesome.
sometimes I just run around and say things, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're just keeping it we don't have any scripts with the exception of maybe the intro, which we want to nail,
Yeah.
and everything is just, a conversation.
Yep.
There's no fancy scripts. So I think it's important that, like, if what's working for us now, we don't change that, because if we start altering our compass 1 degree or 2 or 5 degrees, it'll become a different show.
Yes.
And so what's working right now is just what we're doing. So we don't overthink any of it, and we just go do it, Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Cole and I have had that conversation about this show. It's like, it's working. We're growing. Not in Nicole Johnson's Detour growth rates, but there's a billion podcasts out there too. So this one, for me, the important thing is to stay true to why I wanted to do it, and that's to get people's stories behind their stories and just have fun. I've been God has blessed me with the ability to meet and become friends with literally thousands of people in the off-road industry, and it's I know some of their stories and some of them I don't, but I want to know them. And I think everybody should, people know you're a monster truck driver now with all your huge social media impact now and YouTube impact. People are like, oh, this girl's all about cars. Maybe they don't know, it started with your dad being a Caterpillar mechanic, and that's important stuff. How we got to where we are is, I think, just as important as being where we are. So
yeah. And we're always, for us, when we're picking a car, it's car person story. There are great cars out there, but if the owner is like not cool and doesn't have a story, maybe because he just bought the car, who cares? We don't care about that. We want to hear a story. And it's a very uniting thing. The thing that's what I'm discovering about this show is, I spent so much time in off-road. That was the only thing I paid attention to for so many years.
Right.
You think it's every bit of the entire universe. It's big. But then you take a look at the entire automotive universe, and you realize it's one little sliver of it.
Yes.
And that's why what I'm doing on this show is just discovering JDM or Cobras or VW Bugs or Rat Rods, whatever, right? And so I'm kind of discovering all these different things. And what I realize is that whatever you're into, there are people who are just as passionate about what they're into as when I was in off-road, just as passionate. And we might speak a little different languages, but it's all the same.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when I went to France. In 2011, I went to France as a guest for a European Jeeping event, and it was celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Jeep. And my preconceived idea of French people was that they didn't like Americans. So I didn't know what it was going to be like when I went there.
Right.
And then I realized that the unifying thing was the Jeep. Those people saw the Jeep as liberating them from the war. So they didn't see Americans like I thought. Maybe it was just that group, but they thought we came in and saved them with the Jeep, liberated them. And it was like, I ended up coming home and I wrote a magazine article that was published, and I titled it, It Tastes Like Chicken. Because not only did I eat frog legs that truly tasted like chicken.
They do,
but
actually.
They do. Little tiny, still tiny ones. But the entire experience of off-roading in France felt very similar, exactly what I was already used to in the United States.
Wow.
And that's what I'm finding in all sectors of automotive.
Yeah.
It's that if you're a gearhead, you're a gearhead. We're all
Right.
passionate about it. I don't care about Ford versus Chevy versus Toyota versus, I could care less. I love everything.
Right.
But it's all the same passion. And with as many, as with as much push to do away with internal combustion engines, I feel it's really important to keep telling these stories.
Absolutely.
Because they got to be told.
Yeah.
And how people feel when they're in these cars.
Yeah. That's I've got to ask, because you've driven some pretty seriously rad high horsepower vintage race cars recently. Has anybody let you like just go for it? Anybody let you do a big old burnout or?
I mean, really depends on the car, and it depends on the owner and the scenario and where we're at and if it's safe. And I'm not there that every episode we need to be like damaging a car by stressing it out that much. Burnouts are not easy on a car.
No.
Sometimes the owner will say like, I want to do a burnout. Sweet, let's go do a burnout. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, sometimes I'll ask them, is this a car that you would want to do a burnout in, or should we? And I had one other owner that said, yeah, you can do one. And I never did because it didn't feel right for the car. For me, it's about showing respect. I gotta be able to earn my next spot. I don't take it for granted that just because one guy let me, that every person's going to let me.
Right.
When I asked Lynn Park if I could drive his Cobras, I mean, I point blank asked him, knowing he had originals, I would like to drive a 289 and a 427. So we're clear. And that's probably a pretty ballsy question to ask somebody. And the reason he said yes is because he goes, if you can backflip a monster truck, you can drive a Cobra.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. Still no pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were just really respectful. And when we filmed that, we have a little powwow before we go out and drive. And we say, look, we're just here to minimize risk. It's a wonderful car. Great story. We're not here to cause any damage.
Right.
To anybody or the car. You got to remember, these are $2 million cars.
Yeah.
Even if it was a $50,000 car, I'm not there to go ruin it. But we minimized the risk by just kind of driving what we needed to film and get out. And we didn't overdrive. But then we've had other shoots where we're driving for 7 hours because the car is so much fun and we're just driving all over the place,
Yeah.
And it cuts down to 12 minutes of footage, but we're driving for 7 hours, So, but then he later, what was really crazy, I realize and I appreciate the rarity of the experience that there are people who've never even laid eyes on an original Shelby Cobra.
Yes.
Or put a finger on an original Shelby Cobra, or sat in the passenger seat, or heaven forbid, sit in the driver's seat. But to drive 2 in one day originals is a very surreal experience. And when our video came out, Lynn said to me, Lynn's the owner, he goes, if you really want to know what a Cobra is like, you need to drive one on the racetrack. Yeah. And I'm like, I just didn't even know what to say to that, because I was like, is he just joking? Like, is that like just a statement? And I turned to my husband, and he said, because Lynn had said, this was in January of this year. And he says, we have an event in May, a Cobra Owners Club event at Willow Springs. And, you should come out and drive one on Mother's Day. And I was like, I told my husband after we were off the phone, I was like, I don't know if that's an authentic offer, but the way I'm looking at it is I got 4 months to be ready. Yeah. I'm just looking at this as I want to say yes, if it really is an opportunity, So I just spent a lot of time. I just spent as much time on tracks as I could. And I went out to Willow Springs. And so I'd understand that track, so that I was prepared, and he let me drive it. He let me drive 2 cars that day. But none of that was at 10/10. You're not going to go out there like it's good.
No.
You're not. You'll never get a call back.
Right.
It's just go experience it. But I went 100 miles an hour on the straight. I can still say I went 100 miles an hour in a Cobra. Yeah. That was cool.
That's very cool. I've never sat in a real one. So I have seen many and touched a few, but I have never got to even sit in a real one. So You know, I totally understand that. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's,
You just
uh, yeah, it's what an opportunity and how great, you know, and what respect to, just not go out there and just burn the tires off it around the
right.
corners or
It
whatever.
was about being aware of the situation,
It
not thinking about price, but
right.
being very just present. I
Yeah.
was just very present about remember every single breath you're taking right now, like while you're
Right.
on this track. And it was just in my own head because I was alone in the car while we were
Sure.
where we were doing that. And
That's
that just if you saw the movie Ford versus Ferrari, he's pounding out the trunk to fit a suitcase in one of them. Ken Miles, he wasn't really the guy in real life who did it. It was Al
right.
Dowd. But Ken Miles is banging on the trunk with a hammer because the rules say you got to fit a suitcase, right, in the GT class. And that really happened in real life, where they
Yeah.
were pounding out the trunks. Well, Carroll Shelby made 5 cars to go race in Europe in the GT class. One of those is the one I drove on the track. That's
Wow.
what's wild.
Yeah.
That's what's wild. And I kept thinking, how many people can say they've been in an FIA Cobra
Right.
on a racetrack, let alone females? I honestly don't know the answer to that, but I just know that it was, I'll never forget it. It's
Yeah.
pretty darn cool. It's pretty
That
darn cool.
that is super cool. That is so
Yeah.
rad. And what do you have you got insights into what's coming up?
Yes. So Cody Walls is from Delaware, and we met Cody. He builds customs, and he has a 49 Buick that he built, and
Okay.
he sectioned it 2 inches, he chopped it, he pancaked the roof, and it is just all hand built metal art, and it just
Nice.
won Custom of the Year. Now these cars are sleds, right? They're
Right.
not about going fast. They're just
Sure.
cruisers.
Yeah.
But I started following him on Instagram well over a year ago, and I saw his metal work, and I was like, "Good grief!" And he does everything. He paints it himself, does all this work, a one-man band. And I'm like, "Oh, he's in Delaware. I'll never get to that car." And he came out to Pomona in California in February and brought it to the Grand National Roadster Show, and that's when it debuted. And I saw it in real life,
Nice.
and I was like, "Good grief! We got to film this car." Well, he lives back east. How are we gonna do that? I'm in Vegas. My producer's in San Diego. We don't have budgets to get back east. And he came and brought it to SEMA. So we said, aha, while you're in Vegas, can we please shoot an episode? So he and his wife stayed a couple of extra days, and we met
Awesome.
up at my buddy's shop and we cruised it. And
Sick.
just a totally weird experience to be in a car like that because it's totally opposite of
Right.
a Cobra. It's
Sure.
totally opposite of a rat rod. It's just you could eat off that car, and I
Wow.
just appreciate the hand built nature. And he's young; he's like 35. He's not a very old dude to be into a
Wow.
car like that.
Yeah.
So Cody's episode will come out sometime this month. We're crossing our fingers before Christmas. It takes us a lot of work,
Yeah.
and then we just filmed over the weekend down in Tucson this thing that is just it's another rat rod, but it is so wonky. I
Nice.
can't wait. It's just wonky, and we were rolling coal all
Ah,
weekend.
I'll be looking forward to seeing it.
12 valve Cummins diesel out of a 93, 1-ton Dodge it's got dually axles with like 37-inch Yokohama mud trains in the back. It's a 1930 Ford Model A 2-door rat rod with
Yeah.
dually mud terrains and a 12 valve Cummins and a compound turbos, 2 turbos, and it
Wow.
just blows black smoke and has a freight horn, and it's super fun and weird. And I had to drive that. I got to drive that.
That's
So
cool. You had some
yeah,
good stuff coming up.
yeah,
That's
we
awesome.
like variety.
Yeah.
We're all about variety.
Well, you really are. I mean, you're all over the place. So that's
Right.
which, like you said, it's about the passion for the sport as a
Hmm.
whole, not just
Hmm.
one sliver of it, right?
Yep.
So covering all those bases, but your energy and the fact that you do cover all those bases, whether it's rock crawling or, original cobras on a racetrack. I mean, there's two different worlds there, like you were saying, but
Yeah.
you're building all those people as fans. So that's
Yeah, we
super
we get
cool.
to pick up new followers in each genre that we try,
Yeah.
so it's actually from a business or YouTube channel model standpoint, it's great because we'll never ever run out of content. And
Right.
with proper funding, we can travel the world. I mean,
Yeah.
Anthony Bourdain traveled the world
Right.
seeking out different food and cultures, and we can do the same thing once we are properly funded. We will never run out of content, and the
Yeah.
scenery will always be different,
Yeah.
you know.
That's
So it's a
that.
great, to me, it's a really good concept.
Yeah. That's awesome because it's like it, and it's a great outlook. I never really thought of it that way, but I watch car shows all the time from Europe and all over the world. And yeah, you really could. You could go anywhere and see a different
Hmm.
car and maybe a slight twist or a big twist on the car culture in
Hmm.
one particular area. So yeah, that's well, see, there you go, being brilliant again. So
I don't know about brilliant, but we're just doing things that we think are fun. And I
yeah.
think that it translates. Maybe people are having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. People must be having a good time because it's growing, 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 and
Yeah.
that's huge. So, do you
Yeah.
have any current sponsors and special thank yous, shout outs, etc.?
Well, a huge shout out to Kicker because they have been with me and supporting all the crazy things that I've done for 15 years. I mean, always there. Roger's great. Steve Irby, of course, is great. And
Yeah,
everybody there, when I see you guys annually at SEMA, it's like a big family. They've always supported on some level of what I'm doing. And of course, they've helped me out with the show a little bit when I really appreciate that. We have been working with Holly and Simpson, which is great. Holly
awesome.
owns Simpson.
Yep.
They built me a beautiful custom fire suit for the show, and I wore it and looked like Ken Miles when I was on the racetrack in my Cobra. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so
awesome.
yeah, and Shell is a new relationship that I have just sort of budding too. They brought me out to SEMA. They uh, they brought me out to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which was a big deal, and
Yes.
I got to attend that. Which I'm from Las Vegas, so it was very cool to be at that inaugural race. And but baby steps
Right.
doesn't mean we've landed it yet.
Yeah,
We're still working on our partnerships.
that's awesome. And what about special thank yous? I know you got to
Thank
have
you.
some people you got to
Oh, well,
special thank yous to.
the first two people are my husband and my mom because my stepfather died last year and we moved my mom in with us. So, they have to put up with me all the time and me traveling or me, doing a podcast from my house while they're, you know, doing whatever, eating dinner. And they
Yeah.
put up with a lot. And my mom helps us quite a bit. She does help us on the channel when I need her to help
Awesome.
me respond to some things. And I just think that I couldn't do it without their constant support. They're always telling me to keep going. If you don't have cheerleaders in your camp, it makes it really hard.
Yep.
They firmly believe in what I'm doing. And then the other unspoken heroes are the rest of our crew. My producer, Michael,
Yep.
my son, Kainoa, works for us. And
Oh, cool.
we're just little. My son won an Emmy, by the way.
What?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
My son won an Emmy. I'm just proud mom. He graduated
Yeah.
with a degree in broadcast journalism, and one of his projects over the summer, the professor submitted, and he just won a student Emmy, which is a really big deal.
Wow, that's
But
huge. Yeah.
he helps us on the show. So I think just it's a team effort, and there's no way I'm just like all by myself doing this. I couldn't
Right.
exist without those people, truly.
That's
So
awesome.
I just thank my family and our team for keep pushing me to do,
Yes. keep
to
digging.
keep going forward. Just keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. I tell, I'm
Hold
always
on. You see
messaging.
this?
Hi, puppy.
She's pestering me.
Oh,
Look at her lap, her face on my lap. She won't go away. She's
that's
just
funny.
pestering me.
Yeah.
That's what
I
I'm
have,
dealing with.
I have a couple of kids that I started working with back in the Muzzies days that race Dakar now. And when they have tough days over there, they, they've said, I get your message and I keep digging. And I'm like, it's kind of been like a theme. So I
Yeah.
totally understand that. And that's super rad. Okay. So where do we find you? YouTube at,
YouTube is, Nicole Johnson's Detour.
yes,
And my Instagram, Facebook is all from prior to starting Detour. So it's Nicole Johnson Offroad
right.
on both. Yeah. Pretty easy. You can find me there. And you can go to NicoleJohnson'sDetour.com if you're like, want to nerd out and read bio stuff or buy a shirt or just
Swag.
whatever. Yeah. If you want to check out more stuff on me, it's amazing. I mean, I know my history and I know my past. Look at it, it's getting worse.
Oh.
Right. She's now in my lap. Now it's getting worse. But I mean, what's weird to me is I keep thinking that everybody knows what I came from because
Right.
they used to. They used to know me for Monster Jam or they used to know me for rock crawling. Look at this.
Right.
But new people don't know who I am. And so they kind of trip out sometimes when I tell them my background. So if you totally want to read more, there's a bio section on our website. There's a Wikipedia. You can look up Wikipedia. There you go.
So the website is
Nicole Johnson's Detour.
Nicole
same as the
Johnson's
YouTube, NicoleJohnson'sDetour.com or Nicole Johnson's Detour on YouTube.
Perfect.
Nicole Johnson Offroad on all the social stuff. Yeah.
Right on, Nicole.
And this is Miss JoJo. This is Josie.
The puppy, for those of you who will be hearing this first, the puppy wants to eat. They're like,
the puppy is in my face, licking my face. I think
Nicole's
she got
face
dinner,
right
but she's just my bestie and wants to be pestering me right now.
Well, with that, I guess we better sign you off. Thank you so much, Nicole. I always love seeing you. I love your energy and I love what you're doing. And
well, thank you.
Keep digging.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And just thank you so much for allowing me this whole time to just promote the show and talk about what I'm doing. And because I need as many people as possible to come along with this journey, on this journey with me. So thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming along for the ride. Nicole Johnson, I'll see you soon.
You're awesome. Thanks, guys.
Whew, what a show. I just love Nicole. She's unpredictable. She's so much fun, and she's so very genuine. Man, just awesome. Speaking of awesome, thank you so much, Kicker Performance Audio. You guys are awesome. Keep living loud. Find them online for all your 12-volt audio needs at kicker.com, on Facebook at Kicker, on Instagram at Kicker Audio. Of course, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear, Bomber Eyewear. Find them online, bombereyewear.com, or on Instagram at Bomber Eyewear. Over 40 styles of frames, multiple lenses all over the world. So if you're listening in Hawaii, go see my buddy Wally at Big Island Bomber. Look him up on Insta. If you actually got to meet him, he came and tracked me down at SEMA. It was really rad.
Oh, cool.
In the Caribbean, you need some shades, look him up online, Bomber Eyewear Caribbean. So check him out, bombereyewear.com, on Insta at Bomber Eyewear. Of course, the Premix Podcast, our guy Cole sharing all his passion for desert racing through the lens of a camera, and also available for your announcer or MC and event announcement needs. Hit him up on Insta at the Premix Podcast, the @ symbol ThePremixPodcast. CAST.
Nailed
Of course,
it.
yeah, thank you. Kelsey Morel Film. Find her on Insta at Kelsey Morel Film for all your video production needs or audio production needs. Hit her up on Instagram at Kelsey Morel Film. And of course, Hey Keeks Marketing. Everything from websites to social media influencer complete campaigns and literally everything in between. You need help? Yell, Hey Keeks. Look her up online, heykeeks.com, or on Instagram at Hey Keeks Marketing. Cole, what you got?
I got nothing, so make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. That's what I got.
Dude, that is so good. Please do it again.
There's no way that lightning strikes twice.
Come
No
on.
way.
You got it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
And hey, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Now you have
That's
two
so-
options. Which one you like better?
That's beautiful. That's
Thanks.
beautiful. Brings a tear to my eye.
Shouldn't.
With that, man, great. We've got more good stuff coming. We're working on some guests. We're pushing up towards Christmas and then the New Year's and then Dakar.
Crazy.
Yeah, hard to believe already, huh? So with that, we need to get out of here. So Mad Dog out.